Welcome to Rights for Women, a podcast all about celebrating women's voices and supporting women writers. I'm Pamela Cook, women's fiction author, writing teacher, mentor and podcaster. Before beginning today's chat, I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the Dharawal people, the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast is being recorded, along with the traditional owners of the land throughout Australia. And a quick reminder that there could be strong language and adult concepts discussed in this podcast, so please be aware of this if you have children around. Let's relax on the convo couch and chat to this week's guest. Hello everyone, welcome to the very last episode of Rights for Women for 2023. Feels like not very long ago that I was recording the very first episode, but anyway, that's just the way things go these days, isn't it? So I'm really excited to be here tonight with some of my guest hosts for Rights for Women. Unfortunately, a few people couldn't join us. Ray Cairns, Meredith Jaffe, Laura Boone and Cassie Hamer all send their hellos and have a great Christmases via us tonight. But I am really excited to have the other guest hosts here who are Maya Linnell, Penelope Janu, Jo Nell, Rachel Johns, Mary Lou Stevens and Jo Riccioni who will be joining us. So it's been such a weight off my shoulders to be able to have some fabulous guest hosts on the podcasts and to just provide a lot more variety, I think, for listeners as well, to be able to listen to different people posing different questions to guests and to inviting guests on that they really want to talk to. And it's always great for me to edit those episodes too, because they're episodes that I haven't heard, haven't been in on the planning. And it's always really lovely to edit them and to hear the interviews for the first time as I'm editing them and then to release them out into the world. So I think it's been a great year for Rights for Women. I went on to the analytics the other day because I'm really hopeless at looking at all that sort of stuff. And we've had over 25,000 downloads this year of the podcast. I'm really happy about that. I'd love to increase that even more. And I'm sure that as next year rolls on, that we'll gather even more listeners and the word about the podcast will get out there. So tonight we're going to be speaking about our writing highlights, our writing challenges for the year as well, and also what we're recommending and what we're reading as we roll into Christmas and holidays. So there's no need to really go on with a longer introduction to these lovely writers because everybody has heard them on the podcast. So let's start with the first question, which is what has been the writing highlight for you for 2023? Maya, can we start with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Pam. And 25,000 downloads. That is amazing. Congratulations. There's lots of people with some really good taste in podcasts out there. So for me, a real writing highlight for 2023 was setting a book in South Australia, which is my home state, and getting it to go across the border and do a bunch of events over with the South Australian audience. So I got to see lots of local readers that knew the places that I was referring to, lots of new readers that had never actually picked up any of my books, but a friend had encouraged them to come along, or a librarian had said, oh, Maynell's going to be speaking, you should come along. But having that book that's set in South Australia, Kookaburra Cottage, and it's got this real winery theme to it as well. It talks about a boutique winery called Lacewing Estate. So I got to do a whole slew of beautiful winery-related promos, which I haven't done before. So a wonderful day tasting wines at Coonawarra, which is set in the Limestone Coast. It's a wonderful award-winning, internationally acclaimed wineries. And they opened their cellar doors and said, Maya, come on in, film some content. Would you like to taste the sparkling? How about we try you on the Shiraz? And it was wonderful. So I think setting a book in a winery is a really strategic thing.
Yes, great idea. I can understand why that's been a highlight for you, Maya. Brilliant.
Yeah, it is really nice because there's always been that Victorian South Australian divide. And as a youngster growing up, it was really hard to hand over my driver's license as a South Australian to get that Victorian driver's license. So it felt really lovely to go home and present this book that was like an ode to my home region of the Limestone Coast.
Fantastic. And of course, that's the first of your new series, isn't it?
It is. So there's 2 more books at least set in that series. So I get to spend a fair bit more time in the beautiful areas, the coastal towns and those beautiful wine growing regions.
Oh, fantastic. How about you, Pen? What was your writing highlight? I know you've had a few books out this year, so it might be hard for you to choose.
Yeah, and I think that the highlight is a bit of a wave like that. I sat down and I had my most recent book, Sunshine Through the Rain, was like, okay, that's lovely. That's the book that's only just come out. And then, but of course I don't normally have so many books, and of course it takes time to write them all, but it just happened that I had a January release, and then what would have been the next January release came out in December. So in January I had Shelter from the Storm, and I had to put them here so I remembered what they all were. So I had Shelter from the Storm in January, and then I had Sunshine Through the Rain, which just came out last week. And then in the midst of all that, then I had Into the Deep End, which was a re-release in June. And this is a little book that could, because this was my first book. It was released in 2017, and they put a new sort of rom-com cover, and it's actually being released in the UK at the beginning of next year. So that was really exciting. And then Country Vet Christmas, which was Pamela and I were obviously both wrote a Christmas story for this anthology, A Country Vet Christmas. And what, Pam, and it could be just because I've lost a bit of memory lately, but my most recent really happy time too has been on the road trip with you, where we actually toured regional New South Wales, which were both really, we just love that area anyway. And we just went to one bit of it, and then we're already saying, oh, but we've got to go there, and we've got to go here, and we've got to go there. The one road trip of many, hopefully, because that was just such a wonderful opportunity to connect with readers in regional areas. One of those highlights, of course, was that we
I was going to say, also was being with me in Tamworth.
Oh, absolutely, because that was another road trip for this book.
You've been all over the place, Pen.
That was also good. And next time, Rachel, we go, I insist that we have a caravan.
Yep.
And we share the bed, because that would be a lot of fun too. Yeah, so I've just had a really lovely year. What makes the year is obviously in the writing terms, is the readers and other writers. And I've been so blessed to have had some fantastic times with all of you guys actually through the year, which couldn't be better.
Yeah, I know you've had a really busy year, Pen, and thank you for reminding me about the road trip. I'd actually forgotten about that as a highlight.
And my biggest memory, Pamela.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was great. I'll talk about more than that when we get to me. But yeah, and I loved watching the socials and everything that you and Rachel and the others had on the Tamworth trip too, because Tamworth's such a great spot to go and talk about rural fiction as well.
And I think wine bars had something. We had a lovely wine bar event, didn't we, Rachel? And Pam, you and I had a lovely wine bar event too.
There is a theme running here, isn't there?
And there's May with her wine bar event. So I'm just waiting to see what everybody else says about wine bars.
Okay, wine seems to be a bit of a theme with authors.
It does. Rach, why don't we go on with you? Because I know you have a wine bar event, which we'll talk about later coming up in Sydney. But what's been the highlight of your writing year?
Oh, it's hard as well because, so many, it is about seeing people, I think. And I've had a few times where I've been able to connect with people over the years at the couple of Love Comes to Town events that I've done. And obviously the Romance Writers of Australia conference, which is always a highlight. And writing-wise, I would say I've had one book out this year, Talk to the Heart, which was my nun romance. So that was a bit of crazy. That was fun. But I think the biggest highlight was probably writing my first romantic comedy, like a contemporary romance book, which is The Other Bridget, which was out. And I wrote it in first person, present tense, which is stuff that I used to hate. So I feel like I've grown in terms of what I dislike. And
how did you find that, Rachel? Because I've just started a novella in first person present tense, which is new for me too. So how did you find that experience?
I eased into it, I guess, because I did first person. I always wrote, most of my books are in third person, and then I did first person with Just on Wish a few years ago and first person with Fly in the Nest. But both of those books were past tense still. My hates in reading always were first person and present tense. Like, it just really grated on me. But with Just One Wish, I had to write in first person. It sounds woo-woo and weird, but the characters that's just the way it was. Like, for about three women, but I knew that it was one person was saying to me, no, it's my point of view. I'm telling the story and it's in first person. So I just did it that way and I really enjoyed it. And the same kind of happened, I guess, with The Other Bridget. It just fell into first person present tense. And I thought, what am I doing? I got used to it. And then I think it's hard. I find it now hard switching back because then I write in third person, often for my rurals. And so I do find it a bit jarring switching back. But I really enjoyed it. And I think it's fun I need to really change the point of view. It's not really, and the tense is not really that of a big challenge. I see other people, but they're like, oh, I'm going to add 12 point of views, multiple timelines. And I need to maybe give myself a bigger challenge. But I really enjoyed it. And I think actually what helps me switching point of views for different books or using a different tense is in my rules, it's always third person, dual point of view, and past tense. So that kind of just helps me set the mood and the tone for those books. And in my women's fiction, it's all different. But in the rom-com, like when it was a lighter sort of fun type of book, I think having it first person really helped me with that, and the present tense too. So I think it helps me set the theme and the tone for the book, if that makes sense, or the theme.
Yeah, fantastic. And we're going to be talking about The Other Bridget early Jan. So it's going to be one of the very first episodes in 2024 for the podcast. But correct me if I'm wrong, but were we at your readers retreat this year?
Yes, that was my other big highlight of the year. I've got that written down.
I had to really second guess myself then and think, was that last year or this year?
I didn't know if I could be hog and say too many things, but definitely the first Rachel Johns online book club retreat reader retreat, which happened in Harndorf, beautiful wine country.
Gorgeous.
And Penelope was there, and Pam, and many other authors. And it was, honestly, we had 100 readers. I had no idea how it was going to go. I organised it with my co-host, Anthea Hodgson. It's a Facebook group if anyone wants to join. And honestly, it exceeded my expectations. It was just so lovely. Everyone was so friendly and enthusiastic. And apart from a few food issues, dietary requirement issues, there were no issues. And it was just an amazing weekend. And so we're doing it all again next year on the Gold Coast with different authors. So Maya, Joanna, and Mary Lou, I've got you. I'm eyeing you for 25. But
no, it was such a fantastic experience. Yeah, it was fantastic. And as a writer, and Pam, you'll say the same, I've never had people would come because they knew that the authors that were going, and they would have all like 7 of my books.
Yeah.
That they'd had. And they even better, they were dog-eared and they'd been read, and some had been read multiple times. It was just like, oh my, it's like the author's dream moments, really. It was lovely.
I think the chance to get in front of 100 and slightly more next year readers who are the diehard readers.
Yeah, they're passionate.
They're going to buy every book you've written. They're going to not only buy it, but they're going to tell everyone that they know about it. They're going to follow you. They're going to become a groupie. And so they're the really great readers to have. And I know there was a couple of authors who weren't, say, as well known there as maybe you two. And we did a survey afterwards, and there was it was really beneficial for people who either only had books that published overseas or a debut. So yeah, I think it was amazing. It's a lot of work, but it brings a lot of joy.
Yeah, no, you and Anthea did such a brilliant job of organising that, Rach, and I think, I'm really interested to see how it grows over the years to come. It was fantastic. Yeah. Mary Lou, let's go to you. What's been the highlight of your writing year? And just tell, because I think the bit that we were talking about with earlier, I wasn't recording. So tell us where you're coming to us from, and then talk about your writing highlight for the year.
My writing highlight is that I pressed send today for my 2025 novel. I'm just
yay
over the moon, so relieved, and I can finally take a break and take a look around me, because I'm in Vietnam at the moment. I'm here for 3 months. The book that I had just sent was written and edited. I did 5 drafts before I sent it off to my publisher in 6 different countries across Southeast Asia. And before we set off slow traveling, so what we do is called slow traveling. So you go to a country, as long as the tourist visa will allow you to stay, that's how long you stay. And by doing that, you cut down your accommodation costs dramatically, and you're not jumping in planes left and centre. So those costs and those carbon miles all disappear. And it allows you to really, if you're not writing a book, immerse yourself in the culture. So for the next little while in Vietnam, I'm really looking forward to doing that, because I'm going to have a bit of a break now over summer. But it's been an extraordinary experience writing this book in all these different locations, in all these places around the world. And we were in Borneo for 3 months in Kuching, the independent state of Malaysia. It's called Sarawak. And I even had a writers group there, because I was there for 3 months.
Wow.
Writers from all over the world. Yeah, there's only even 5 or 6 of us, but it was an English-speaking group. That's been one of the things, is finding people to speak English with. And that was just so lovely. And that's what I was really looking forward to today. Today is actually one of the highlights of my year, because connecting with other writers, I really miss my writing groups in Australia. They're just so crucial, I think, to this writing life, is to have that connection with people who know what you're going through, who support you, who cheer for you, who cry with you, all that stuff. And in this past year that we've been slow traveling, that's something that I have really missed. So it's great to see everyone today and talk about writing. Now, I haven't done wine bars, but because my book that's coming out end of January next year is called The Chocolate Factory, what I have done wherever we've gone, and this has been a real highlight of my year, is go to chocolate factories.
Yeah.
And it's astounding. It's astounding how many there are throughout Asia, because this is perfect cacao growing weather, climate. So there are little bean to bar factories everywhere, and I think I've visited just about all of them. We're in Kuala Lumpur just for a little while, and I visited 2 or 3 there. In Saigon, I went to 3. We're going up to Dalat in the mountains. There's another one there. In Thailand, there's quite a few. In Cambodia, there's a great one. In the Philippines, it's just everywhere. So I've been visiting lots of chocolate factories. And Rachel, you were saying before about writers and wine going together. I think writers and chocolate go together.
And I just want to say that we in the Rachel Johns Online Book Club, are doing The Chocolate Factory for our May book.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
I love this book. And just the other thing I wanted to pop in, Rachel, while you're here with me sharing this space, is that the book that I have just sent is in first person, but it's in past tense.
Oh.
And apart from my memoir, which came out 10 years ago with Pam Macmillan, I've never written in first person before. But it's the same thing. It's what the book demanded. I searched and hoped for other protagonists to pop up, but none of them did. None of them did. It was just this one voice. And I wrote to my publisher and went, I'm freaking out a bit because I think this book's in first person. What do you think? And she said, if that's what's calling to your heart, that's what you write.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So there's this massive 120,000 word book, which was 150, and it's all just one protagonist, and I love it. I really love it.
Yeah, I do that annually, Mary Louise. And then that was, people don't really write rural in first person either, but I think you just, you do it. That's the way you do it.
But it's good to be different, Ben, as well, isn't it?
It's part of your voice. It's who you are. Yeah.
There's not much rural, and you're right, there's not much rural first person. It's really good to be that can be a point of difference that gives you that little extra something. Yeah.
And that's good. That sort of goes to voice generally, isn't it, for writers out there listening? Yeah, sometimes the voice. That's been a lovely discussion tonight. That what voice does the book demand, you think? And that's something in edits and things. Obviously, somebody could say, no, I think this would work better in third person, and then you'd consider it. But to actually write the story and get the story out, sometimes you just have to do it in that voice that feels right for you.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's great for writers out there to hear too, Pen. Thank you. Jo Nell, what's been the highlight of your writing year?
I've got my chocolate there, so I'm on that. I haven't been anywhere as glamorous as Mary Lou. I have travelled virtually to Greece, and the highlight of my year is seeing this book finished and out in the world. So I think I've talked to Pam on the interview on the podcast about some of the issues and challenges with writing this book and the various iterations. And I jokingly was telling somebody it was Shirley Valentine meets Homer's Odyssey. And I certainly feel like I've been on an odyssey with this. I feel like I've been lured by the sirens in the wrong direction and then come up against many-headed monsters and all sorts of things. But it's here and I'm very proud of it. And it's been out since the 1st of November. And it's been lovely because the last 2 books I released during lockdown, so I didn't have any kind of launch with those, or not an in-person launch, and I didn't have a book out at all last year, so I was seeing everybody else putting their books out, and that was all wonderful, but having a little bit of FOMO with it. So it's really nice to have a book out this year and to be doing those events that we're all talking about, is meeting the people again. And I don't have wine bars. I have a lot of readers in retirement villages, so it's there's the sherry and the cups of tea and scones, but I've been doing those, and libraries and bookshops. So some lovely events, and it's all winding up now. So that's been the highlight of my year.
It's been so good to see you have another book out, Jo. And of course, this one is just, I think you're just getting better and better with each book. And I can't wait to see what's going to happen next.
Oh, thank you. No, it's lovely that this seems to have resonated with people. It's amazing how many people seem to think that they're married to an Alan, who's the character's husband in here. So it seems to have resonated with a certain demographic anyway.
Yeah, I must say
Jo,
a few resonating moments there for me, definitely.
I just wanted to say that I'm listening to The Last Voyage of Henry Parker on audio at the moment, and I'm just loving it. Yeah, it's great. I think perhaps part of my homesickness is that I just read and listen to Australian authors.
Oh.
Jo Riccioni, welcome.
Hello.
You've got your beautiful covers for The Rising behind
you.
Very recently out.
Yeah,
so I think I know what might be the highlight of your writing year, but do tell us.
It is the highlight of my writing career so far. Second, having that duology complete was a big deal for me. The other highlights had to be, there's several highlights actually, going to Supernova, which was twice. I went to Supernova Brisbane this year and Supernova Adelaide, and that was phenomenal. I had a great time. Someone else in my writers group published their first novel this year, was an absolute highlight. That's Lucy Lever's book, known to me as Barbara. Yeah, so that was a real trip. And what else was a highlight? There's big news that's going to drop this year that I'm not allowed to actually talk about, but I'm going to hint at, which is to do with big things for the series. That's all I can say.
You've got lots to celebrate. Fantastic. Yeah. Who's left? Me. What's been the highlight of my writing?
Highlights.
As Pen reminded me, definitely going on the road trip out west was so much fun, because meeting readers, new readers, and also traveling with fantastic writing buddy Penelope Janu, and also the Rachel Johns Readers Retreat. That actually, Rach, I came home from that pretty blown away too, because I haven't had a book out in the trad sense for a few years now. I've had indie publications out, but I was blown away with how many people actually had my books there and knew who I was.
Wanted to sign them.
And B, how many people came up and said, oh, wow, I can't wait to read your books. I haven't come across them before. And then, like you say, okay, that's 100 people, but those 100 people are going to talk to other people. They're going to share on social media. And I think things like that are just so good for spreading the word about our books.
Yeah, I think because there are 100 people who are prepared to spend money going on a reading retreat, they are your, as we said, diehard readers who are to then, they're not just going to read your book and be quiet about it. They're going to post about it. They're going to tell their friends. They're going to, so yeah, I think it was Tess Woods told me years ago that Stephen King, so it's like Chinese whispers, and I wasn't going to say it anymore, I better get that out. Anyway, like whispers, Tess Woods told me that Stephen King said that you need 1,000 rabid fans. And sometimes those really passionate readers are the ones that can hopefully, spread the word about your books. There's nothing like word of mouth.
Yeah, definitely.
Until TikTok came along. There was nothing like word of mouth that came along, which is word of mouth on steroids, I guess.
It is, depending what genre you're in.
Yeah.
Other highlights for me was having the novella out in A Country Vet Christmas. So really good to be published in trad print again this year after not having had that for a few years, and also just finishing a novella and something that I'd never done before, and putting it out there and being reasonably happy with that product and getting nice feedback from readers. And also having my books out on audio has been really great for me this year. I've only had one book previously out on audio, The Crossroads, which was through through an English company that's been quite inaccessible. But to have sold my backlist, which I did at the end of last year, and have that out, so they're gradually coming out every kind of probably 4 months or so. My backlist has been coming out, and then in the new year, a very brand new book, which is a sequel to or follow-on story from my first book, Black Bottle Late, will be out in the new year at some point. But close to home is the next one that's coming out on audio on the 1st of February. So new covers and breathing some new life into my backlist, which has been fantastic and just really good. It's just great to be re-energized about my older books and then to be inspired to write some new stories as well. So that's definitely been the highlight in another way as well. So lots of highlights, really. It's been fun. So let's move on to what's been our biggest writing challenge for the year. Pen, can we start with you?
Oh, okay. I'm going to start with a downer.
That's all right. The challenge. So
the challenge. Like, I think it is challenging. And I think this is a wonderful, Christmas is usually a very happy time, and it's Christmas and it's family, reunions of family, whatever religion or whatever you might come from. It's really a really nice time in many ways. But just sometimes continuing to write when, can I use this word? Like shit happens, like it does in our families, in our personal lives, and around the world. And most of us write stories where readers escape into those stories. And that is such a joy as a reader, as readers, we know that is just so important to us, that we can actually pick up a book and we can escape to another world and another life. And that's what we try to write when we write books as well. But sometimes it can be a little bit difficult as a writer. There can be certain challenges, and some things just suddenly get to you where you think, oh, that makes you sad. And so I suppose that's a challenge. It's always a bit of a challenge. And I think it's a challenge for all of us writers. And I think the thing that, and most people, other writers obviously understand it, but sometimes if you get a really narky review or something and you think, don't be mean. It makes me sad as a mother of like adult and obviously men as well. But then some people just seem to be really mean. I think, don't be mean to writers. If you don't like a book, that's absolutely fine. Don't read it. Don't be mean about it, or don't be personal about it. Yeah, that's a bit of a... Yes, and don't tag us, especially on Christmas Day. I've forgotten which writer it was that said that, but don't tag me with a 3-star review on Christmas Day. Oh, fair enough. Anyway, but that's just a little bit of a challenge, I suppose, and I think that's for all of us.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in with mine right now, Pen, because I agree that for me, just the challenge is always sitting down every day, and I don't do it every day. Pen is much better at this, and all of you are much better at this, I think, than I am. Actually putting my bum on that seat and getting the words out is a constant challenge. And it's ridiculous because when I do, I get into it and I love it, and I'm really happy that I've done it after I've done it. But the actual thought of sitting down and writing new words is a continual challenge for me. So that hasn't changed probably for a long time. Not to say that I'm not going to keep doing it, and I do keep going back to it and doing it. But like you say, Pen, when there's things going on in the world and things in your life that kind of take up a lot of headspace and drag you away from it, it can be just that continual challenge to sit down and do it. But we keep coming back for more. So let's hope we just keep doing that next year and the year after and the year after that. Jo, we flick to you, Jo Nell. What's been your biggest challenge for the year? I think you alluded to it before, but there might be something else you wanted to mention.
Yeah, no, I agree. I echo exactly what you're saying. And I'm wondering whether when there is other things going on in the world and when we're looking at that news cycle of bad news, whether it's a constant low level of anxiety that sort of zaps your creative energy a bit. I don't know whether that's across the board, but certainly there've been times this year, latter end of the year, when it has for me. Yeah, there was the challenges of the getting Mrs. Winterbottom Takes a Gap Year, which I think I did in the end. But the greatest challenge looking back was doing the copy edit in hospital. So I just had my long-awaited knee replacement, which on a happier note is absolutely fantastic. I'm so happy with it, and I'm hiking and going to the gym and doing all these things that I couldn't do before. So it's absolutely wonderful. I don't regret it, but of course it's a process and it hurts. And life doesn't stop because you're in hospital, you're on painkillers. So the copy edit arrived at the hospital, arrived on the ward by courier, and brought to me at my bedside. And I pulled that little tray table over and spread out my copy edit in hard copy, and was doing that while I was on a really excellent, very strong pain-killing drug, which I told everybody, Palexia, Palexia. If you're wondering, I think it imbibed the whole thing with a lot more energy and spark, quite honestly. But if there are any typos or anything, I can blame the drugs. So that was a challenge. And then I think having had a book that's been well received and well reviewed and has had very good sales, then starting a new project, the weight of expectation of that, and everyone saying, we want your next novel to be even bigger, that's crushing. It sends the muse off hiding, whimpering into a corner sometimes. So I think my other challenge has been getting my head around the new project and really getting right, putting all the rest of it aside, all the publicity and everything else, and just getting my head into a new set of characters and a new book, which I think come the new year will be very exciting, but it's just all those other distractions at the moment.
Yeah, and maybe once you've had that little bit of a break from, because you've still been doing a lot of publicity for Mrs. Winterbottom too, so maybe over Christmas having that break from that and then being able to get back into the next one afresh might help with that.
Yeah, I know a lot of authors they're writing one, editing another and publicizing another, but I think I've lost that ability to multitask, and my brain is just craving to focus on one project at a time.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. To be onto that in the new year, Jo. What about you, Maya?
For me, the first one that springs to mind, Pam, is a sync issue. So I'm usually pretty good at backing up my work and saving my work, emailing myself a copy of a manuscript at regular intervals. I've taught myself ever since I was a journalist to automatically press Command S as I'm typing. I'll be typing a sentence and just Command S is just automatic for me. But all of that falls to the wayside when you save to the cloud. And then I usually have a pretty good system of things on USB when I'm switching between my laptop, my MacBook Pro, and my desktop, my iMac. But on a week and a bit ago, I was on deadline. I'd really worked my guts out on getting this structural edit in. I only had 48 hours to get it done, and I was heading off on holidays the day after it was due, so I needed it done. And it was this glorious day outside. We live in Southwest Victoria, so it's regularly quite wet and windy. But it was this magnificent day. The kids are on the trampoline with the sprinklers. I'm holed up in the office doing structural edits and that final real push. And you guys would all know, you push yourself to the absolute limit when you're in the throw deadline. And I just didn't do that extra step of emailing it to myself because I thought, no, I'm so close to being finished now. I've saved it. I know it's there. The next morning, I did a little bit of work before the kids went to school, drove one to school, came back. I thought I'd rather work in my office today rather than on laptop. Shut down the laptop, made sure everything was saved, went upstairs, opened the desktop, opened the iCloud, opened the document, and all of a sudden it just wrote over all the work I'd done the whole previous day when it was sunny and beautiful outside. So it's just a lesson. I've had it before. I've been burnt, and it was only a day's work in the end. So it's not like I lost 20,000 words, but when you've been pushing yourself so hard on deadline, barely looking at socials, barely looking at my family, here's the code you can feed yourselves. And when you've got so many hours in the seat, it feels so brutal to accidentally overwrite a file. And I couldn't find anything except for midway through the previous day. And I thought, I stayed up till 9:30 that night, slogged my guts out, and I could have been just outside enjoying the sunshine with the family. But that should teach me a lesson, and I should certainly remember always save important things to a USB stick if I'm going from my laptop to my desktop.
Yeah, that's a good lesson for all of us, I think. And I have to say I'm really bad at that too, with the whole saving extra things and sending emails to myself. So thank you for that reminder. Mary Lou, let's go to you. What's been the biggest challenge for you this year?
This is one that a lot of you here are very familiar with, but I was not. So my 2 books that have been published previously, they were complete before I submitted them and got deals. So the Chocolate Factory, which comes out next year, the book for 2025 that I've just pressed send on, they were written on commission. And I had never experienced that. And it was extraordinary for me. And I think that other emerging authors probably go through the same thing where suddenly, and I got a 2-book deal on 3 chapters and a synopsis. And then I said, oh, we'll give you plenty of time to write it, which was fine because I'd already done all the research. I write historical fiction. There's a lot of research. I'd already done the research for it. And so that was okay. So I wrote that while I was still back in Australia. But this year, while slow traveling around Southeast Asia, editing one book and writing the next one and doing all the research for it while being away from home and writing from all kinds of different places. But just that constant pressure of having edits for one, writing another one, and also like the book I've just written, the only thing in my contract is a title, a working title. So actually writing a book on contract from nothing has been an extraordinary experience, but also a massive challenge. It's a very different beast to write a book to contract that you have not written, as opposed to how I've always written in the past, which is plenty of time, getting that manuscript assessment, working with a mentor, lots of time to edit, to refine. When I worked with Monica McInerney on The Last of the Apple Blossom, she wouldn't even look at it until I'd done 6 drafts. She wouldn't let me submit it until I'd done 10. All that time. And when The Last of the Apple Blossom was successful and HQ approached me and said, "What have you got for us?" And I went, "I've got this book. It's going to take me about 5 years to write." And they went, "No, you don't have that long." I went, "I've got this other idea, and I have done all the research for it as well," because I was vacillating between the two, because I thought I had all the time in the world. And they went, "That's what we want. We want this historical fiction about chocolate set in Tasmania." And so it's been really interesting. And I have lots of friends who are on book a year contracts, and usually they go on along okay for a while, and then there'll be a bit of burnout. And I can see why, because it's constant. It's absolutely constant. And when my husband and I decided to go slow traveling, I said to him, "You know that I'm going to be like I am at home. I'm going to sit in a room on my own a lot of the time. Are you okay going out and seeing the world while I just sit at home?" So it's been this, or sit in a hotel room, right, or an apartment, or right, wherever we happen to be. And sometimes we just have had a hotel room and I'm just sitting in the bed and he's had to go sit outside or something, because I'm not one of these people who can write in cafes. I need silence and I need space. So there's been a lot of challenges this year, and it's been fascinating. And I have such a new, heartfelt, in my bones respect for authors who write a book a year.
Okay, put your hand up if you write a book a year.
I'm not going to put my hand up because I have written a book a year, but it happened and I don't think I can do it again. I'm not sure, and I may piss my publishers off, but this is something that I wanted to talk about for my challenges. Is that all right, Pam? Because
go. Let's roll straight on, Jo. Yeah.
That managing, I totally agree with Penny and loads of the other people, Mary Lou, who've said managing that work-life balance, it has been virtually impossible for me putting a book out a year. And listening to Amy Andrews' speech at the RWA, Romance Writers of Australia, really brought that home to me. Rachel's laughing, but yeah, it's
fantastic. It was so good.
It was so good, and it just for still young, not young age wise, but a young newbie writer. This is my 3rd novel, but I still feel like I'm emerging compared to a lot of the romance writers who've been putting out books a year. And to hear her talk about that and put the warning out there that this is not okay to have, to do that to yourself, and that you need to manage it. You need to manage it really well. And if you're not managing it, you need to do something about it, is really valuable feedback from an established author like Amy. And also, the second thing I want to mention, and again, it's probably a little bit political, but I am really interested in talking to writers about this free gig mentality that we've all got. And I think it's something that really needs to be aired amongst writers and in the industry, because we're creatives and other creatives don't do this for free, this stuff for free. And that's been a really challenging thing. And I always put myself out there for free to do stuff. And I'm going to really try hard just from a kind of political and supporting the industry, because it's not healthy for us to keep selling our services for free in terms of appearances, in terms of promotional stuff, for publishers asking us to do promotional stuff for other people's books. I really think we need to consolidate as industry professionals and say this is not okay. I know the ASA advocate for this a lot, I think we do a lot, which we should not be doing. That's a challenge for me.
As well.
I think that's great, Joe, and I reckon we need to have a whole episode on that.
I just
2024.
I feel like I never do anything like events not paid anymore, but I did in the early days. Like now I'm like, no, I'm only doing it unless it's a we've approached them for book tour, then I will. But even going so far as that, I think we are in worst enemies in that we don't want to say no to anything a lot of the times, because we are in that, oh, we need to sell as many books, we need to keep our name out there and all this sort of stuff. And in the end, sometimes we can overwhelm ourselves, and that burnout comes from saying yes, not so much from doing too much writing, even though we've got to be careful of that, but saying yes to all the things. So next year is my year of no. I'm saying no to every cover quote, Nick, just for 1 year, and to everything that's not outside of my book releases, because I feel that pressure, and it's really it's hard. So I think we do need to learn to put ourselves first sometimes, which is hard, especially as women.
It is hard. It is hard when you're a people pleaser and you want to help other people.
Yep.
But I also think it's us as writers understanding that when another writer says no, they're doing it for a really valid reason.
It's not because they hate you and they don't want you to succeed. It's just because sometimes we need to protect our own time.
Yeah, definitely. Rach, what would you say has been the biggest challenge for you? Is that it, or has there been another or more?
The biggest challenge for me is remembering that you have plans and life laughs at those plans sometimes. I was hoping to finish my second book for the year, which is insane because I did go through a burnout definitely a few years ago, and then I felt really revived and stuff, and so I thought, yes, I can do these 2 books a year that were required of me. But I'm almost managed this year, but I won't, and I don't know if I'll be able to do it next year. But the biggest challenge for me was 2 things, I'd say. COVID derailing me, so illness, like actually being unable to work for a week when I was hoping to be finishing my book, and that's derailed my plans for having time off over the summer and stuff, and shift that back, which it's so funny because when publishers say, oh, it's fine, don't worry about it, that's all very well for you, but I actually rely on this income. So I need my submission acceptance payment and stuff. Or so if one book's pushed back, it pushes back others. So I think, that's really derailed me as a sort of thing you just have no control over. But the biggest thing for me always is just self-doubt and getting like outside my own head and just getting words on the page without questioning myself. And that's what I'm constantly doing. So, that's my biggest challenge, is overcoming the self-doubt and just getting the draft down.
Really interesting, I think, too, for people listening, Rach, to hear you, who I think out of all of us, you've definitely published more books than any of us, and to still be experiencing that self-doubt, which is completely normal. But it just goes to show that it doesn't matter how many books you put out there. Really, it is a constant companion that
I think it plays into what Joanna said as well, in terms of when you've had some sort of success. I don't know how people like Leanne Moriarty and Jane Harper, or maybe they're okay because they like burnt millions of dollars, that helps. But I always think you put more pressure on yourself each time. So I really relate to Joanna saying that this book's done really well, but then that means in some ways you're putting more expectations on yourself the next time, and really hard on ourselves. And I try and sometimes combat that by saying to myself, I've been saying this for 20 books, and it's funny because we're not the best judge of our own work, but also books that I have thought, oh no, that's definitely not my best work, and I've just tried my best, but unfortunately for some reason or other I haven't thought that was as good as it could be. People have been, that's my favorite book ever, and it's just I'm like, are you on drugs? So you ready? I have to bite my tongue. And so I think what I always helps in a little bit of way is that all my favorite authors that I would buy no matter what, all of them have had books that for some reason or other I haven't loved as much as the other one. So to try and combat those feelings, every time I'm like, just do the best you can. And everyone's allowed 1, maybe 2 books that are not so, that don't receive. But I think also other things like do play on your mind also. Like it's really hard to just stay in your box and focus on the writing. There's always, with social media, there's always what's going on with everybody else's career, and you have to just stay in your own lane, which can be really hard. But also, I think this year, there's a lot of different things affecting the publishing industry. The TikTok you mentioned, it feels like only people that are writing either high romantasy or smut books are actually selling any books. And it can be disheartening to go, I'm just tapping away, trying my best. And hey, I've been writing for the best part of 12 years or whatever, and I've got books out there that are exactly like the ones you're reading there. But you've just got to put out that old stuff out of your head. And so I think the hardest thing for me is to focus on me and remember that I'm not in a race against everyone else, and that I know I've talked to publishers about people on the TikTok books that are doing amazingly, which is great. And I think it's great that people are reading books, basically. And I think it's great that young people are reading and loud and proud about what they're reading. But I think you've got to look back at, like, you're only in a race against yourself. So you have to look back and go, oh, hang on, this is how far I've come. I've stayed in this career for 12 years and managed to put these books out there. Like, it's really hard to ignore what's going around and focus on why you're in it. So that's my biggest challenge, to remember that, all I wanted to do was write a book and maybe make a living out of it. And so to not let that joy disappear. Sorry, yeah. Not making any sense, getting all woo-woo.
No, you're making lots of sense. It's great. Yeah. Again, a topic we could talk about for hours, but let's move on and talk about what we're reading or recommending for holiday reading and giving for Christmas gifts. Maya?
I love So Fiona's one that came out this year is The Money Club. Fiona writes big, juicy books. They're quite thick, so they'll keep you going for a fair bit of the summer holidays. This one's about the really interesting topic of Ponzi schemes and how people can just get really accidentally, in a way, sucked in. And Fiona writes from experience because in the area that she lives, it's been struck by a couple of notorious Ponzi schemes, and she tells a story at her book events. I was lucky enough to host one of her events earlier this year about having someone who was one of the biggest Ponzi schemes fraudsters at her Christmas party once. So very interesting. It's always a gripping read. She does a great job of relationships and really relevant conflicts and scenarios and great characters that you could just imagine living next door to, or having at your Christmas party, drinking your champagne and offering you to join their special exclusive club. I also have started reading the very fabulous Country Vet Christmas by some beloved authors. There's some great ones in there that you might recognise. Anne Cook, Penelope Tanu, hello there. So wonderful country Christmas stories. Also, Rachel's newest one kept me company on holidays as well. So lots of fantastic stories out there. I've got a few already wrapped under the Christmas tree for family, for my daughters, for my dad and my son. Lots of good ones, but they're in earshot, so I better not say exactly what they are. I think we're very lucky. There's some great authors to choose from, and a book that will suit everyone's taste these holidays.
Yeah, there's plenty out there. But Maya, when can we expect your next book?
Yeah, so my current one, Kookaburra Cottage, is already out on the shelves. People can find that. I've been signing some sneaky copies here, there and everywhere wherever I go. But Wallaby Lane will come out next winter. And like my other 5 books, we're talking rural romance, we're talking close-knit communities, lots of country charm. There's always some baking and some gardening in my stories. So yeah, go out and find them.
Oh, great. Thank you, Maya. Penny, what about you? What's on your reading list for Christmas? And
I've got Mrs. Winterbottom. I'm actually dressed better to match Jo's book than my own book. But yes, look, I just love this. And I'm not just saying because I love Jo, but I just love this book. And I've actually given it to a number of people as well. One of them, my sister-in-law, who's a doctor, who's married to a doctor. And so there's been a lot of discussion over the Alan Heather issues, but fantastic book for everybody. Dreaming in French, Vanessa McCausland.
Hang on, Rach wants to interject there.
Can I ask you a question, Pen? Is that a hardcover? Is that the UK edition or something?
It is.
I'm obsessed with hardcovers, and I think we need them more in the US.
We do. We need them more here.
It's just beautiful. Yeah.
I hope you're not giving that one away, Penelope.
Oh, absolutely. No, this is mine. It's actually, Jo's actually put my name in it to stop me giving it away. I'm only giving away the paperbacks. Vanessa McCausland, and I went to the book launch for this. Vanessa's just a beautiful writer, and this is a beautiful book. I actually, because my mother, she's an absolutely avid reader, and she's very kind. She does read my books because it would be probably rude not to. But she loves Vanessa's books. So I actually had this one. Vanessa actually wrote an endorsement that was, wrote it to me and to my mum. But I have actually read it, but I read it really carefully. Like the spine is still really good because I'm going to give it to my mum for Christmas. It has got her name in it as well. That's a beautiful book. Love Just In. I'll put a plug in for a debut here. Natalie Murray's gorgeous. I met her through RWA, and this is her debut out with Alan, which is a really lovely book. And it's really so many rom-coms. You think, oh, rom-com, light and fluffy or beach read, but no, they've invariably got more to them. I'm sure we'll be finding that out through Rachel's book next year too. But yeah, Love Just In, which is just very newly out. Yeah, and quite a few other books. I have some crime stuff. Oh, hang on. I've actually got, our friend Ray Cairns. That's a lovely book. Yeah, Dying to Know. Yeah, that's one on my list for some men who read more crime than not, but Ray writes beautiful crime for men and for women. So yeah, lots of excitement.
And of course, you've got Starting from Scratch out now, Pen.
It's actually called Sunshine Through the Rain. It's me who got hit on the head, Pamela.
Let me say that again and I'll edit that out.
No.
Pen, you've got Sunshine Through the Rain coming out. Actually, I'll try that for a third time. You've got Sunshine Through the Rain out now that people can grab for Christmas gifts as well.
It is. And actually today was my first day that I actually ventured to the shops since I got hit on the head. And I saw lots of copies of it. It looked really nice. It looked nice stacked. This spine looked really nice too. Yeah, so Sunshine Through the Rain. So yeah, I'm really happy that's out. That's my kind of third weather book, as it were, with the third Cartwright sister. It's got lots of vets and animal welfare and very nice Scottish vet who I really do.
Rach, what's on your Christmas reading list and suggestions for reading?
Oh, I have read a few books that I've really loved lately, so I'll quickly go through them. Hello, Beautiful by Anne Napolitano. It's supposedly inspired by Little Women. I didn't think it was that Little Women-ish, but I really enjoyed it. What is interesting, though, is it's pretty much all telling and no showing.
Oh, okay.
And I've read a few books like that this year that, as writers, we're always told, show, don't tell, show, don't tell, show, don't tell, but have done really well, and I really enjoyed it. I did all this when I was sick with COVID this last week. I read Dolly Alderton's Good Material, which was fun. It's about a breakup from a male point of view. Really loved Beth O'Leary's The Wake Up Call. Oh, yeah. So that was just a really lovely, sweet kind of romance book that I was really in the mood to. And on my TBR for the summer or for soon, I've had Mrs. Winterbourne. I wanted to read it, actually. I've been so obsessed ever since I heard the concept for this book. I said to your publisher, Rebecca Saunders, Joanna, I need this book. And so she sent it to me. So I don't know why I haven't read it yet. So I'm very excited about that. That's going to be very soon. And the other one I've just recently been sent, which I'm excited about, is Karina Never Ever Forever, another romance. I really enjoyed Duck L'Orange for Breakfast. This was her first book on its second book, but earlier in the year. And if we're going Christmas, I haven't read this one yet, but I do love Karen Swan's books. I've only read a couple, but they're really always very gripping and paced and everything. She writes one Christmas book each year. So this one I think is a road trip and meeting like an ex-boyfriend or something. And I am a sucker for road trips and a sucker for second chance romance. So Christmas by Candlelight, I'm looking forward to.
Ah, lovely. Yeah, I just finished listening to Christmas in New York, I think it was, which was Josie Silver.
Was that good?
Yeah, I did. I really like her Christmas books. They're great. Yeah. Rach, thank you. Okay, Mary Lou, Christmas reading and recommended reading for the holidays.
I do not have any books to show you. I have not even seen a copy of my advanced reader copy for my own book. I do travel with some books, but they're all research books. So and they're not available online, and I had to really search for them in secondhand stores, and I don't really think you want to see them. They're very specialised. But books I have enjoyed, the ebooks I've enjoyed, I do love historical fiction. That's my genre. That's what I write. And I love Karen Brooks's work. The Good Wife of Bath, which came out 2021, is one of my favourite ever books. Her latest one, The Escapades of Tribulation Johnson, is another fabulous book. It's set in the late 1600s. It's about the Renaissance period and the theatre of the time, and a very famous playwright that no one's ever heard of because she just happened to be a woman, Aphra Behn. And it's a romp, but there's all kinds of political shenanigans going on, and it's that gorgeous, sumptuous writing that she does so well. Another historical fiction I really liked is by Tanya Farrelly, War of Hearts, which is set in the First World War and features a hot priest. So, yeah, that's good. And I've just, I just looked at my list, The Disappearance of Astrid Ricard.
Oh,
Goodness me, Natasha Lester. Hello. I read that book. I just devoured it. I loved it. I think it's it's hard to say it's the best book she's ever written, but I think it's really on point on a lot of different levels, and having that 70s theme time zone is, you've got the zeitgeist there. It works. It really works. And something that I have just finished, if you just want a short read and you like Christmas novellas, this one is a different kind of Christmas novella. It's by Kim Kelly, who's another fabulous Australian historical fiction author. And it won the, am I going to get this right? Is it the 2040 or the 4020 prize this year? And now I have to do Face ID, and that's not working. It won the inaugural 2040 publishing prize. And it's based around two young women leading up into Christmas, into a very busy and frantic Sydney. People desperately trying to forget World War I, but these two young women can't. And it was interesting, the similarities, because Kim Kelly got an advance read a copy of The Chocolate Factory and did this fabulous review for it. And she mentioned the similarities between our two books.
Oh, wow.
Because not many people about that time after World War I. It's actually not set during the World War, but it's the aftermath and what happens. And of course, with The Chocolate Factory, the Cadbury factory in Hobart was being built in 1921 and started producing chocolate in 22. So they're both in the same time era where this stuff was happening. And the aftermath before that was still ongoing. And it's a short read, it's a Christmas read, but it deals with grief in the most extraordinary way. Her writing is like crystal and it resonates. It's incredible. So it's a Christmas novella with a difference. It's called The Ladies' Rest and Writing Room, and I highly recommend it.
Oh, I've got that. I ordered a copy of it, Mary Lou, and I've got it sitting there waiting. So I'll be looking into that in the next week or two. I didn't realise it had a bit of a Christmas theme.
Yeah, it's lovely. Extraordinary book.
Fantastic. Thank you. Jo Nell, have we done you, Jo? No, we haven't yet.
I'm going to tell you about what I am saving for my holiday, for my Christmas holiday, and they're the latest books to arrive on my shelf. And last week, my book club had a Christmas party, and we do this sort of Kris Kringle where we wrap up a book. And they've just managed to give me, or I picked the perfect book for me. It's a Berkelow staff pick, and it's called Freshwater for Flowers, and it's by Valérie Perrin. She's a French author. And this one, I haven't read it yet, but I love the premise of it. Violette is the caretaker at a cemetery in a small town in Bourgogne. Her daily life is lived to the rhythms of the hilarious and touching confidences of random visitors and her colleagues. But her routine is disrupted one day by the arrival of a police chief wishing to deposit his mother's ashes on the graveside of a complete stranger. And it's a story of the love interest of the police chief's mother and the secrets that are revealed and lost. So I just love the premise of that. It's such a pretty little book. So I'm looking forward to that. Purely by coincidence, I have Penelope Janu's latest, Sunshine Through the Rain. And I love Penelope's writing so much that there's actually an endorsement there on the top for her writing. Encapsulate everything I love about the romance genre and so much more. A go-to author for rural romance for the head as well as the heart. So I stand by that. I've heard a lot about being on the journey with Penelope with this book. I can't wait to meet Primrose Cartwright, the vet, and also the Scotsman, Blake. I'm really looking forward to getting into Blake. Sorry, that doesn't sound right, does it?
I'm sure he's looking forward to getting into you too, Jo.
This arrived yesterday, and I'm very excited about this. This is Graham Simpson's new one. Now, he's married. I didn't realize he was married to Anne Buist. So his wife, Anne, she's an author. She's written under pen names, I think, and her own name, various genres, but she's a psychiatrist as well. And this book is about a psychiatry registrar, which I once was, a country girl with a chaotic history. And thought she'd seen it all in the emergency room, but nothing compared to what she sees at the psychiatric ward at Menzies Hospital. Now, I have worked in one of those old-fashioned Victorian psychiatric hospitals, and I know that they're just full of stories. And I think the cover is beautiful. This comes out in April next year. This is from Hachette. This, my publisher sent me that, but I'm just so excited to read that one, and a sort of new direction really for going. And then this is a male author. Am I allowed to mention male authors?
Yeah, you can mention them. We don't talk to them on here, but you can mention one.
No Christmas would be complete without a David Sedaris for me. And this is one I've had on my shelf for 3 years now, and I'm going to immerse myself in it. I just think he is one of the naturally funniest writers. Just his observation, his essays, something about them that really appeals. It just hits my funny bone, and I love the humanity that's also included in his stories and essays. So it's a David Sedaris as well.
Lots of reading there for you, Jo. What about you, Jo Riccioni? What do you?
Yeah, I haven't got the physical copies because I wasn't organized enough, but I'm going to recommend to dip in and out of this short story collection, fantasy collection called Everything Under the Moon, edited by Michael Earp, and there's lots and lots of stories in there, and it's fairy tales in a queerer light. Which I haven't started yet, but I'm dipping in and out of it. I'm going to dip in and out of it over summer, because sometimes you need a little story and then something else. And there's some contributions there by lots of different writers like Amy Kaufman and lots of other Australian writers. So that's one. I am going to read the third installment of The Power Unbound. I interviewed Freya for the pod. I absolutely love her first two books in this series, which are Marvelous Light and Restless Truth. And this is the most amazing series because it's history, murder, queer characters, feminist issues, and magic. Oh, sorry.
Sounded amazing when you interviewed her, Jo. I loved that interview. It just really, it's not a genre that I would normally read, but it just sounds like such a fantastic blend that it really
she's whip smart, Freya. She's all over what she's very clear about what she wants to do and what she wants to write. And I really enjoyed that conversation with her because she's so inspiring and clear. She's great to talk to about the industry as well. And her books, oh my goodness, they are so good. So good. The other book I am going to read is, the one I have already read is The Assassin's Thief by another Australian fantasy writer called Madeleine Tiffu, who I learned how to pronounce her name when we were at Supernova together. But Maddie's book got shortlisted for the Western Australian Premier's Prize, which is an amazing achievement for fantasy to actually get on those lists. I think fantasy is having a moment because I got shortlisted for a prize as well this year for the Small Press Networks Association of Book of the Year. So that is testament to the fact that Maddie's an incredibly hardworking young writer working in the fantasy genre, and that's the first book in this series. The second one's called The Soul Thief, and she's hard at work on the third one, and they're really good, so I recommend those to anyone. And then the final one I want to recommend is actually, I think Rachel already said it, I want to read Corinna May's Never Ever Forever. I haven't read it yet, and I'm keen to do that as a summer read and get my romance fix alongside my fantasy.
Brilliant. As the host, who is the least organised of anybody here, I have no books to actually show on video, but I will say that over the summer I am going to be, what I'm currently listening to actually on audio and loving is Tom Lake by Anne Patchett. And as an absolute bonus, the narrator of that is Meryl Streep. Anybody that just loves books that are full of character, not more character driven than plot driven, but Anne Patchett just has this beautiful way, and particularly in this story, of weaving backwards and forwards between past and present and just taking you into the story, and having Meryl Streep narrate that is just absolute magic. And you can just sit back and listen and picture Meryl telling this story. It's just wonderful. And there's lots of books that I hope to read over the holidays. I've got a whole list of them there, but one that I'd highly recommend from this year that I've read that kind of surprised me because it was out of genre, and I did interview her on the podcast, and that's After the Forest by Kel Woods. It's an absolutely amazing debut. It's so beautifully written and just has that whole fantasy and fairy tale element, but it's very strongly based in historical time period, and the writing is absolutely beautiful. So if you're looking for something a little bit different and that is normally out of your genre, highly recommend that.
I read that too, Pam, and for a debut, it's amazing. It's really so good.
Yeah, and she's already submitted her next one, and I think that's going to be fantastic as well. And the other book that I'm taking away with me to Canada is one that I've had sitting on my pile since last year, and that's Horse by Geraldine Brooks. And it's a great big tome of a book, and I've been waiting to read it. And just because I'm always reading books for the podcast and reading different books, I've had it sitting there, and I'm going to be it's a hardcover, taking that away with me to read in Canada because I'm going skiing in January. So hopefully come back with all my limbs intact.
And that is a brilliant book, Pam. It's just fabulous. And I got to go to one of her literary events when she was touring with the book. And it'll be interesting to see what you think of it, because she does talk about her fear of being cancelled because of that book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she hasn't been cancelled.
Good. Yeah, I love her books. I've read all of her books and love them. I'm really interested to read that, and I can't believe I haven't read it yet. But I am going to let you lovely ladies go and actually enjoy the rest of your night, or go to bed, because we have been talking for quite some time. Thank you so much for being part of Rights for Women, for hosting the episodes, for putting so much time into the preparation and the reading and the actual recording of the interviews. I love that you're doing that for the whole podcast, and the listeners are loving it. So I wish you all a really happy Christmas, fantastic holiday, and can't wait to see you back on the Convo Couch, hopefully next year in 2024.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you, Pam.
Happy
Thank you,
Christmas.
Pam. Looking forward to next year too.
Yes. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry
Christmas.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Rights for Women. I hope you've enjoyed my chat with this week's guest. If you did, I'd love it if you could add a quick rating or review wherever you get your podcasts, so others can more easily find the episodes. Don't forget to check out the backlist on the Rights for Women website. So much great writing advice in the library there. And you can also find the transcript of today's chat on the website too. You can find details on the website on how to support the podcast through Patreon, and you can connect with me through the website at rightsforwomen.com, on Instagram and Twitter at W4W Podcast, the Facebook page Rights for Women, or find me and my writing at pamelacook.com.au. Thanks for listening, have a great week, and remember, every word you write, you're one word closer to typing the end.